Hello, I'm Konrad Moyer with the Cherry Grove Ag Society, and today I'd like to talk to you about firearm safety. On every ranch you will find firearms. Firearms are a valuable tool that is used on the ranch to deal with livestock or predators that are going to affect your livestock. These are the various types of rifles that you will see throughout different ranches across Canada. What I wanted to start talking about first is the different kind of actions of rifles and handguns that you may come across. This one here, 30-30 Winchester. This is a classic Western style gun. This type of gun has a lever action which opens up the top, chambers in around from the bottom, puts it into the loader, and then when you come forward, chambers around up into the back chamber here. This uses a classic hammer to fire the pin, which then fires the round out the end of the barrel. Okay, so now that we've talked about a classic lever action, the majority of folks will find themselves with a bolt action. This is your common hunting rifle. This one here is a 30-06 with a built-in clip. Rounds go in the top. Your bolt action, you manually move the round up into the chamber. When you close the bolt, your pin is set and it's ready to fire. This has been a classic style of rifle for over 100 years. Last one I want to talk about for rifles is a SemiAuto. This one, it automatically takes a round, inserts it into the chamber. After every time it shoots, it'll automatically eject a shell. Out of all the rifles, this is probably the one that will need the most attention, because the chances of a round getting rechambered after use and not realizing it is highly likely. So this one's also a 22 caliber. This is a very common round that you will see to deal with gophers and small varmints. So now that we've talked kind of about a utility rifle and a hunting rifle, one of the other common ones that you'll find on a ranch would be a shotgun. This type is a break style, and it opens up as such. 2 rounds can be loaded, or a single round. This is getting to be an older style of system, but they're still common with the amount that were sold over the years. So other things that you'll find on a ranch would be a revolver. Not as common as it used to be, considering restrictions, but they're still around. This type of revolver opens up, takes shells in through the back, and then as you're going through, you load each one, and then it's a hammer style for the pin, and that's used for the firing. One of the other ones I wanted to talk about is, even though this is a revolver, this style is black powder. This is where you can take in, you manually load your powder, your wad, your ball, you put your cap on the bottom, has a plunger for loading, and then it'll continue to act like any other revolver that you have. This is a little bit different of a system, almost obsolete now, but they're still just as deadly as they always have been, so they got to be treated with the same kind of respect. So this one's a little bit more of a modern production. This is a 1911 semi-automatic. Okay, as you load rounds into it, it'll fill up through the magazine, comes through the bottom, and then once you move the action on the side, it'll load, hammer's set and ready to go. Even though this is not a Western style gun, this is still a very common style of gun. You can get 45 Colt with the SemiAuto, 9mm Glocks. That's kind of a modern style that everybody's moved to nowadays. So now that we've gone over the different types of actions that you'll run across on different ranches, I wanted to talk about some of the unique safety features. When you have your own rifle, it's important that you understand the safety features of your own rifle. That'll help you with safe operation. In this particular one, there's a safety pin here. So when you have it in the firing position and you're ready to go, you have to have these 3 fingers inside to hold that pin. Okay? So in the same aspect, if you don't have this pin depressed, it should not fire. Once you've pushed down on it, it should fire. So that's a safety feature. make sure that you don't accidentally fire this off if you're side by side or you don't have a proper grip on your weapon at the time. By far, I feel that the bolt action is probably the safest rifle to use, because every action that you use, you manually have to move. So you've manually had to load the bullet. When you go to reload, you've manually ejected the bullet. If there was another bullet in here, you then manually have to reload another bullet. So unlike a semi-auto, the chances of an accidental rounding of a cartridge is very unlikely. The other nice feature is you can keep the bolt uncocked as such. If you do feel the need that you have to cock it for certain situations. With the semi-auto, it does have a pin lock to make sure that you can take your action and hold it back, and then you can deal with any jamming or any cartridge problems in there. It's also nice to kind of keep it open for viewing to make sure that there are no rounds loaded. With this particular one, it's got a secondary to make sure that you don't fully engage a cartridge if you don't mean to. On here, there is a safety for the trigger. Red means it's ready to go. Black, no. And that'll lock your trigger from firing. So with the revolver, it has a manual hammer that has to move back. One of the safety features is there is a plate that while this comes up, it covers the firing pin. So if there's an accidental strike, it won't fire. Okay, with this revolver, there's not an overly large amount of safety features as such as there is with this one or with the semi-auto. Really opening, not cocking the hammer. There's also a safety plate in here for accidental discharge. The safest way to handle this is to simply just not have it loaded until you're ready to use it. So with this one, there's a few more safety features with this over the revolvers. Okay, one of the major safety features is this for your hand to sit in here. Without that being pressed, you can't fire. As soon as your hand is in place, you can fire. So that's a nice live action safety feature that you can use so there isn't no accidental discharge. So I wanted to just go over some of the don'ts that you do not want to do, just as a precautionary. There are a lot of things at some point in time somebody's probably done. I'm just going to touch a little bit on it. So the first thing is muzzle direction. You don't want to be standing there with your buddy talking like this. You don't want to do this, especially if you're walking through the trees and buddy's behind you. Muzzle direction, again, is a major don't. So right here is probably the worst place you can put your rifle, even though we've all driven around, and this is the first thing we do. This is one of the major don'ts. This will ask for a fine, loss of rifle, loss of truck. That is a major don't. When you have this rifle behind the seat. So now that we've talked about muzzle direction, the other part that I want to talk about is just simply firing. When you're getting ready to shoot, you want to make sure that whatever you're shooting at, that you're not just looking at what you're shooting at, that you're looking at what's behind you. When using a rifle like this, you always want to take your time. You don't want to make a snapshot. When you're up in place and you're looking at your target, take the time to open your other eye and have the peripheral vision. Where's that shot going to go? What happens if I miss? What am I going to hit behind it? What if that shot goes through? There's a lot of things that you need to think about before you even pull that trigger. So if you feel like you have a high emotion running and you need to fire, take a stop, breathe, prepare yourself for the shot. That's what makes a safe shooter, is somebody that knows how to use their rifle, knows the features of their rifle, and understands what the outcome of their shot's going to be. So being that we live in Canada, we have to make sure that we have the proper licensing to own and handle these rifles and to acquire more and ammunition. There's two different parts to it. There's non-restricted and restricted. With your restricted weapons, those are generally your handguns. Non-restricted would be a barrel over a certain length, which would be pretty much all your long rifles you see here, including the shotgun. when dealing with restricted weapons, you have to make sure that you're part of a gun club and that you have the proper documentation to always be with your restricted weapons. Restricted weapons, as they are on a home base, they're only supposed to be intended for recreational use. Henceforth, the government feels that we need to have our range membership to go to the range, and it's for target practice only. That's rarely will you ever see these ever carried. You shouldn't be seeing them carried. It's just not supposed to happen, but I feel it's necessary that we talk about them because they are present. So now that we've talked about the licensing, I just wanted to talk about safe transport. In this case, we'll use a handgun. It's important to make sure that you have your trigger locks in place. Everything's in the safe position. With the trigger lock in, the chances there's no moving that trigger. Trigger lock in into your carrying case. Make sure that you have your proper documentation to escort you off to the range. By no means is this to replace any official safety training. So this is just kind of a general overview of just how to understand that what rifles can do, the different types of actions, muzzle direction, prepping for a shot, transportation, just things that we all have to consider in the responsible day-to-day use of a firearm.